Okay, so today we're going to be learning about a new graphic organizer or a new way to think about social studies. So this is known as PEGS. That's P-E-G-S. Each one of them stands for a different section or idea within social studies. So the first one is political, which has anything to do with government, laws, military, forms, presidents, etc. Economic, anything to do with the economy, how the government controls money, industries, anything like that. Geography is relationships between people and the earth, so anything that we do to the earth or the earth does to us. And then social, anything to do with people, culture, which we haven't really talked about much, but I think you get the idea, which could include language, it could include the way that people live, it could include traditions, religions, statuses, etc. So this is known as PEGS, and we're going to use this in order to go in depth into Reconstruction, which is the time period after the Civil War. Alright, so first thing you're going to do is get the paper that I gave you, which should look like this. It's just that it's not going to be digital form. So PEGS, Analyzing Topics in Social Studies, is what it says at the top. Make sure to put your name. And then open up your book. I prefer you to open up your digital book. So remember to do that. Go to your Mesquite login portal. Click on McGraw-Hill. And then you'll open it up to chapter 17 for this one. So at the very beginning, what that's going to look like is like this. So when you pull up, you need to click on this, scroll down to chapter 17, and then click open to this section right here, Presidential Reconstruction. Okay. So let's get our hands a little dirty and figure out how to use this new chart. Alright, so the first one, and now as we read, we're not going to be looking for only one thing at a time. We're going to try and keep an eye out for each of these ideas or these things, P, E, G, and S, all at the same time while we're reading. So I'm going to read to you the first paragraph, and let's see if we can pull out some of these things. Alright, so Texas and Reconstruction. This is just a summary, so it's not going to get us into details, but most of the fighting during the Civil War took place on southern soil. Alright, so the very first sentence tells us what we need to know. So this is actually to do more with the Civil War, but the geography would tell us that that is the geography strand or idea. So most fighting slash battles took place in the South, okay, of the United States. Okay, now really that's something you should know for Civil War, but that's okay. Just to give you an idea of how this works. Alright, and as a result, much of the South lay in ruins. The region's transportation system was largely destroyed. Okay, yet again, that is another geographic idea. So with that, I would say I would probably put a dot or some way to denote, but I'm not able to do that right here. Alright, so on this, I would write that transportation systems, okay, so we're thinking of like railroads, maybe even river transportation systems were destroyed. And at that time, they probably would have had some very basic subways or trolleys. So think about like what you might see as public transportation, like buses and stuff, but as a trolley. So transportation systems were destroyed. Again, that's geography because people have built those on the earth. They have changed the earth by building those, and that's a basic idea of geography. Alright, so the region's transportation system was largely destroyed. The plantation system had collapsed with the end of slavery. Now here's a very good example. The plantation system had collapsed at the end of slavery. So who ran plantation systems but wealthy plantation owners? And of course, who was on the plantations were the slaves. So this is actually an example of social. Social is anything to do with people, right? So at that time, this would have been a new social order because plantation systems were part of Southern culture. So plantation system, or I'm going to put the plantation system. Okay, let's go back there. Let's look at that again. The plantation system had collapsed or was destroyed with the end of slavery. Okay, so slavery was ended because the war was won. Lincoln had set everyone free, set all the slaves free with the Emancipation Proclamation, even though it didn't really happen until a little bit later. And so that's a social change. Okay, so plantation system ended, slavery ended. All right, let's continue. So, for those reasons, the South's economy was also in ruin. So you can see even within the first paragraph, then within the first few sentences, we have literally all of these different ideas of the PEGS chart coming into play here. So the economic system was completely thrown out of whack because people couldn't make money anymore using free labor. All right, we're going to continue. The President and Congress led the efforts to restore the South to the Union after the Civil War. This process was called Reconstruction. Okay, so they wanted to, so again, we're going to go up here. We're going to put a text box. You don't need to know this for yourself. You're going to have this to write with. All right, but I'm going to put here that in the economic, that the South's economy was destroyed because they could no longer make money using free labor. Okay, so it was much more expensive, didn't have a way. And then again, we have political. So political tells us that the President and Congress, remember Congress are the people that we elect to represent us in our government. They led the efforts to restore the South to the Union. What that meant was that they were wanting to, think about it this way, if you ever have a friend and you two get into an argument, and if you want to remain friends, you have to eventually apologize. So think of Reconstruction as like an apology, or an invitation to apologize. And so that's what the President and Congress were trying to do, was extend and tell the South, hey, here's how you can apologize, and then we'll become friends again. All right, so President and Congress want to allow President and Congress want to allow southern states into the country. They want to become part of the country again. So I'm going to write that. President and Congress want southern states to be allowed back into the United States. Okay, and I'm going to write, this was known as Reconstruction. You should have been looking, you should have found out what Reconstruction means yesterday when you were doing your vocabulary synonym flowchart. But if you haven't, then hopefully you're learning it now. Alright, so again, you can see within not even the first paragraph, we have all of these different ideas: political, economic, geography, and social. If you're confused and not sure what to do, go back to these ideas of political and look underneath, and you can see where it says anything to do with government, forms, laws, military, etc. And then, again, look underneath economic if you're not sure what that stands for. And you should be writing several of these. You might need actually several of these sheets to take down sufficient notes. All right, so that's where we're going to end it. And ask your neighbor if you need any other help. Otherwise, raise your hand and I can come help you.